to the Empowered Intuitive Academy podcast. I am one of your hosts, Taylor Henderson, also the Kynoch Witch. And with me is the beautiful Petra Costa from When Magic Awakes. And today we are chatting all things dreams, dream interpretations. What the fuck was that about? And I'm sure we've had them those dreams where we just wake up and we were like, what the hell was going on in that dream? What is going on in my head? And so let's dive into a little bit about what is actually going on when we're dreaming and some of the symbology behind it from a physiological point of view, from a psychological point of view, from a spiritual point of view. And then we're going to chat a little bit about our own dream experiences throughout this
We're
podcast.
to frighten everybody.
Yeah, just to let you know that you are not the only ones out there having weird dream experiences. So, Petra, you looked into what the scientific people are saying dreams are what the dreams are doing. So,
Absolutely.
on that.
Well, I had a look because, before we can try and interpret a dream, we have to sort of like understand what is the purpose of a dream, why have we got them?
Yeah.
And obviously science can't 100% say this when it goes around a thought process. There are some people that still believe that it's just random electrical impulses that our conscious mind tries to fit into a narrative on waking. There is still a lot of school of thought that looks at it that way, but with new tech and by using MRIs and different kinds of EEGs and different kind of scans, they can actually get a bit more of an idea of what parts of the brain are getting activated when people are dreaming and in the different states of dreams. So although that's not proving anything, it can show that the areas of activation are in line with when other things are happening.
Yeah.
So when we go to sleep, we've studied people and we go through 4 stages. People are going to think, oh no, you got it all wrong, Petra. It's 5 stages. Well, it used to be 5 stages, but they've now narrowed it down to the 4 for ease of understanding. In the first stage, we go into a nice light sleep. We have alpha waves and theta waves, and all that is basically the amplitude of the waves that are going on in our brain.
Yeah.
And they can measure that with the EEG. So then when we go down and we get into a deeper sleep into stage 2, it's mainly a theta waves. And that's when our heart rate starts slowing down, our breathing slows, our body temperature drops, we get the muscle relaxation, and our eye movement is virtually none. We're just basically lying there. But we do have this funny thing called sleep spindles that are present at this point in time. And they're bursts of, I'm not even going to say it, neural something activity. And that's believed to be when the new memories are getting triggered in our brain.
Yeah, right.
So that's called, if anyone wants to Google it, look up sleep spindles because they're really interesting. Stage 3, we get into the deeper sleep. We've got delta waves going on. This is when growth hormone starts getting released, and this is when we start repairing a damage from the stresses of the day and doing all that kind of stuff. And funnily enough, guys actually go through, I think, a longer pattern of the stage 3, which is in line with the fact
That's interesting.
yeah, so that sort of like makes a little bit of sense to me. That's the stage of sleep where you're likely to sleepwalk or have night terrors.
Ah,
So that's where you're at.
that's interesting because we're
Yes.
chatting about that in our sleep paralysis episode, which if you haven't listened to that, get over and do that.
That's
About what's happening when people are having sleep paralysis episodes or sleepwalking. So that's behind it.
Yeah, so that's behind it. Then we jump into stage 4, the one we're all interested about here, where we get the rapid eye movement. Complete body paralysis occurs at this point in time, and this is when we dream. So everything in our brain is going off tap literally at this time. It's just the EEG is going crazy. But what's interesting is when they were studying the patterns of a person sleeping during REM sleep and a person that is retrieving just in a waking state, retrieving an autobiographical memory.
Yeah.
So what that means is when they're remembering something that happened to themselves, same parts of the brain are activated.
Wow.
So exactly the same parts of the brain activated, which is leading science to believe that obviously there's a certain amount of memory processing that's going on when we're entering that REM kind of sleep.
So is that
So we
like
go,
processing what happens during our days
yeah,
and working through that whilst we're sleeping?
it would lead us to believe that we are recollecting something.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's what we can say. The same areas of our brain lights up as we do when we are remembering a autobiographical memory.
that's
So
fascinating.
that's fascinating. So then
Yeah,
we throw an MRI on our heads and
yeah.
we have a look at what's going on when we have got had the MRI working, and they studied when we have those really emotionally charged, full on ones when you wake up and you're crying, or whatever you feel is so intense.
I've had a few of
And
them. Yep.
yeah, exactly right. And those are the dreams we're most likely to remember. Now, whether that's because they wake us and we're more likely to remember, I can't say, and they haven't said in study. But when that's happening, the amygdala and the hippocampus are going off tap.
Yeah.
They're literally going crazy, which is the same part of the brain that goes crazy when we are in an emotionally stressed situation.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it would suggest from the science of it all that there's two things going on, that we are definitely processing or recollecting something, and we're processing real emotions. So those two things are happening by studying the actual brain activity that's actually happening when we're dreaming.
That's
And
incredible.
yeah, and there's just one other sciencey bit that I want to throw in here, that there are some scientists, what were the type of scientists they're called? I can't remember the name of them. Um, but these scientists have said that what we're doing when we're dreaming is going through a threat scenario. And that we're actually trying to, oh yeah, evolutionary psychologists believe that we're going through threats simulations. So as part of our survival mechanism, we basically throw forward in front of ourselves when we're dreaming what we perceive we might need to be able to navigate in our waking life at some point in time. And we run ourselves through it over and over and over again so that we enhance our neurocognitive response, which I'm just going to say to
Incredible.
everybody, I know. So when this zombie apocalypse happens, I'm safe, man. I have
Same.
I have fought these
Yeah.
buggers
We have
on
rehearsed.
on the high ground, on the low ground.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
fought them everywhere.
Yeah.
So just so you know, this is where you got to go if you want to
Alongside
survive.
the waking prepping for the zombie apocalypses and all of the apocalypses that could ever be thrown our way, you've got dream prep as well. So a space where you can actually reenact that scenario without getting killed by zombies.
Yeah, and
Perfect.
that actually
Perfect. Better than a
that
VR simulator.
yeah, that sort of like really rings true to me, because I think that makes sense from a survival
Well, those
side of
parts
things.
of our brains are responding to that stimuli, which is what we do in our waking lives, right? You know, we're
Yeah,
presented with a situation or a scenario, and then we have to respond to that. And usually it begins with a somatic response. So we feel it in our bodies, be that, we feel the heckles come up on our back or a hot flush or something. And then we have to emotionally respond to that as well. So I think that's fascinating that all of those mechanisms are happening within us and in our brains when we're in this like mini comatose state that we call REM sleep. And you know what's fascinating about that is in shamanism and stuff, theta states and delta states are the states that our brains are in when we're doing dream and journey work. And there's a saying among like shamanic practitioners and things that the your ability to keep someone in theta will go to show how effective you are at walking someone or guiding someone through a journey.
wow.
Yeah. So I
Okay,
find that fascinating.
absolutely. That actually puts a whole new spin on that kind of stuff, doesn't it, when you
Yeah,
think of it
yeah,
like that? Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And so we've got the physiological of what's
Mhm.
happening when we're dreaming. So what do the psychologists say what's happening when we're dreaming?
Well, this was fun. So I had a look into it. Obviously, whenever you're talking about dreams, good old Ziggy comes up. So Sigmund Freud comes up as your first person to talk
Yay.
about this. My man Ziggy. So yeah, and he obviously thought he had a lot of issues, right? Let's not let's
Oh
not
shit.
let's not sugarcoat it. His mum must have been really hot because he couldn't get past that, right?
A
In any
true
way, shape.
MILF. A true Victorian MILF. Yeah.
He couldn't get past it. So he actually believed that our dreams were representations of our unconscious desires,
Yeah.
whatever they may be. But Freud had a select few. And it served as a method of wish fulfillment so that we could actually navigate, we could actually, experience those things where we weren't breaking lots of laws.
A safe place to explore your hidden desires without crossing those
Yeah.
moral boundaries.
Not
Yeah.
worrying about those pesky
Yeah.
things like
Yeah.
morals and
But
laws.
isn't it funny when you have a dream like that and you wake up and you feel so like yuck or
Sorted. You're
guilty
like
or
to
whatever,
yourself,
and you're
oh,
going, oh, I would never, like, why would I
what?
do that? And we all know
Why would I
we're
do
talking
that?
about sex dreams here, guys, and we're going to talk about that. Like,
I'm not.
well, I am. I think let's do it. Let's not shy away from the taboo here, Petra. After all, our
Okay.
switches and our licentiousness with our bodies, it's got to be
We'll see.
discussed.
We'll see how we go with that. But what Sigmund Freud did do is he created a revolutionary approach to psychoanalysis of our dreams. But because before then, a lot of people just thought that dreams were religious insights, that they were prophetic, that they were basically a god or gods coming to us and saying something, or that they were just random nonsense that no one should pay any attention to at all. So he was the first person that said, no, we should start looking at the dreams and taking them more seriously and using them to unlock what's going on inside us.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, he had a good mate that studied with him called Carl Jung, and he studied under Freud, and they were
Love
like
that dude. Yep.
best buds, right? Best buds up until a certain point because, one, Jung seemed to be a little bit more normal, and he did have all
Yep.
this obsession with his mum. And he also believed, because they actually have a differing view on how our brains are made up in terms of, the ego and the id and all of that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
another discussion. But Carl, he actually thought that whereas Freud thought our dreams were memory based, so it's our memories and our wish fulfillment, Jung thought they were more of an avenue for our unconscious or our subconscious mind to talk to our conscious mind where they had gotten
Yeah.
out of balance to
Yeah.
find a pathway forward. So he very much looked at our dreams as a way to move forward, whereas Freud looked at our dreams as a way to unravel our past. And interestingly, Carl Jung was quite a esoterical thinker
Yeah.
because he also believed in the conscious mind and a linked consciousness, so a human consciousness or a universal consciousness. And he believed that a lot of our symbolism that was coming up in our dreams, which we can really talk about later, came from this universal collective, that from what our collective experiences were, gave us symbols that would come up and they would appear in your dreams. So he really was a scientist, but also a spiritualist, which is interesting.
That's fascinating because he does come up quite a bit in spiritual circles and stuff like that. We use a lot of his psychological philosophies to explain the anima and the animus, and the shadow work is quite a popular
Yep.
string of theory that is circulating right now with a lot of people. So psychology, to me, it sounds like they both were on the mark a little bit, like, because you're recalling your memory throughout the day or throughout the week or whatever, and you're working through those situations to sort of get a relived experience where you can go through and change your choices and, pick a different path per se, or process just even what happened. And a lot of people, particularly people that have repressed memories and things, often they start coming through in dreams as well. So I find that fascinating that Freud really touched on that. But also, I'd say Jung was right too, because there is stuff that must be just locked in the subconscious chest, hidden right down the base of our skulls, that
Yep.
we aren't dealing with in our day to day, that is relevant to how we walk through this world. And so, with the common symbolism, we get all of the myriad of dream interpretation books telling us what is actually going on when we're dreaming about specific shit. So that can be anything from animals appearing in dreams, numbers, beings. What does it mean if you dream that you're having intercourse with multiple people and all that sort of random crap? What does it mean if you're having apocalypse dreams, or you're being chased, or you're running away from something? So, I mean, where do we go from here, Petra? Do you want to share a little bit about some of the symbology that's been coming up for you lately in dreams?
Yeah, well, one thing I will just go back to Jung, just because I found some of the things he said. He was actually really, really almost cancel cultured
Yeah,
back in his day
yeah,
because of his metaphysical essentialism views.
I could imagine.
Um, and he was the one who first came up with the archetypes and really started locking
Yes.
them down. And interestingly, I find this really interesting. He attempted to prove universal consciousness, and his method of proving that was the fact that in this universal consciousness, there's so much folklore and mythology around the world that is similar.
Yes.
And that is where he said, well, I can't be wrong. How is it possible that we have all of these from completely different walks of life? Unfortunately, when he defined his archetypes, he was very of his own view, very European in his view of creating
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
And that's where he got absolutely caned, because he was reductive, and he was very European, and he didn't look beyond that. But he did look beyond that because he had researched the folklore and mythology, and
yeah,
he was just vocalizing it and documenting it in a way that he understood.
yeah.
So I think a lot of his stuff was thrown out. But yeah, let's go into it. So, is it worth me sharing one of my wonderful dreams that I have quite regularly?
I think you should.
I mean,
Absolutely. Because I think I think, is it going to be the teeth one?
I think I'll go the teeth one with
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So I think we both need to qualify what we're saying here is that we are both avid dreamers. Like, we
hmm,
dream a lot, and we remember
yeah.
a lot of our dreams. I can have dream nights where I'll have 6 or 7 dreams, and they're completely different. Or sometimes I'll dream, wake up, go back into the same dream, wake up, go back in the same dream.
I love a good dream marathon, and there's
Oh,
nothing better than waking up from the final one and just feeling like absolute rat shit because you got no rest whatsoever.
some of my dreams are like, honestly, they're epics, and it's just fantastic, and I really want to get back into the dream. I'm like
Yeah,
going,
yeah. You
"Oh,
wake up
what
and you're like,
happens
damn
next?"
it, I want to go back to the
I
fantasy
need
realm of my
to know.
subconscious.
I need to know. And a tip for everyone out there, yes, I do write some of my dreams down. That's why I'm up to book
Yes.
3, and I'm plotting out book 4 and 5 of my book series, because I do use the dreams as what do you call it? Inspiration for my work.
Dream journals
But
are a really good way to track your own symbolism and commonalities within
exactly.
dreams, even if they're happening like lengths of time apart too. So that's what
Yeah.
I do personally. I write down a lot of my dreams in a dream journal, and then I can go back to it and be like, oh yeah, I dreamt that before. What was happening then? And
What's
then
going on
compare
now?
and contrast. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I have happened to me, and it doesn't matter what kind of dream it is. So let's be really clear. It doesn't mean if I'm having a horrific dream or a lovely dream or an epic, my teeth will fall out. They fall out virtually in every dream that I have. And to the point where I'll actually be in my dream state talking to whoever I'm talking to, and I go, hang on a minute, wobble one loose, throw it out. And they're like, are you okay? Like, are you right? And I'm like, no, 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 no. I actually say in my dream, no, no, it grows back next dream. Don't stress about this. And I'm actually just spitting teeth
What?
out left, right, and center. And it's always one side that I literally have no teeth in at all. And the other day, because it was happening so repeatedly, and I mean, it was like every dream was a real tooth spitting fest.
Yeah.
I actually was eating on the other side of my when I was awake, and I was eating on the other side of my mouth because I actually for half a day thought that
You
I had
thought you
actually
had no
I
teeth.
had no teeth on that
Oh my
side.
goodness.
And I was actually saying to myself, "Oh yeah, those teeth are gone." And I'm like, and I actually had to do this, and I had to put my finger in my mouth and check. I go, "You've got teeth
Oh,
there."
actually, they're still there.
So I actually, honest to God, had that. Now to put that makes me sound like a loon, but I've been having this teeth spitting out dream, and I can tell what time it is. I don't do dream journals at all, so I've got no way of doing it. But there's a book called The Tommy Knockers, and in the Tommy
Yes.
Knockers, people's teeth fall out. And a very good friend, when we were reading it, said, "Oh, you must have, been in Stephen King's head way before he wrote this book, because your
Yeah.
teeth have been falling out in your dreams forever." So, Tay, there's lots of different things about what teeth falling out in a dream can mean, and that's
There
where
is.
that's where it gets really difficult with when if you get yourself the dream dictionaries are fantastic. I've got a very, very good friend, Rose and Sarah, that has wrote a number of books on dream interpretation. Um, Issue is though, if you've got a lot from lot of different authors, there's no hard or fast rule on any of these things. What me spitting my teeth out is going to mean. Um, so some of them that I've heard, it's that I understand death and the cyclical nature of the world, and that the teeth spitting out is just me acknowledging the fact that we all die at some point in time, and how I feel about the teeth falling out, because I'm like, "Oh, yeah, don't worry about it, they'll grow back." Is
Yeah,
my
that's strange, isn't it?
is my view that death's not a big deal. I don't have, and I've got to be honest, I really don't have a fear around death
Yeah.
at all. So that sort of like rings true with me. But it can also be awakening. It could be I'm trying to think what else. What have you read
Well,
that?
I researched it and I have two dream journals that I mean, I don't use them a lot because I just sort of go off what I was feeling in the dream and do it more intuitively. But what I got for teeth falling out was unable to make decisions, which doesn't really sound like you, or the lying through your teeth, false pretenses, or not telling your truth. I
Ooh,
think that might be more you just from previous conversations we've had.
yeah,
And I also looked up chew because
yeah,
I'm like teeth, chewing, eating, digestion. And a lot of it can be, if they're breaking, you've bitten off more than you can chew, or you're mulling
yeah,
something over, like you're holding on to something.
yeah. I've got another one that I looked up where it said it relates to insecurity about your appearance, and this is where I think people need to think about how they feel when this is occurring to them in a dream. So by the fact that I'm like spitting it out, but spitting it out, I'm not even keeping them. I'm just like, oh yeah, there, yeah, no problem at all.
Yeah, you're
I
like,
do.
oh, it'll grow back. I'm like,
It'll grow
yeah,
back.
I
I'm
have
a shark, man. My
50
teeth
extra
just
rows
grow
back
back every
there.
time. And so I don't think there would be any feelings there about insecurity. Otherwise, I would feel upset in the dream when it occurred.
Yeah, yeah.
Rebirth, yeah, I sort of like get that fragile nature of things, the things that just don't always go how you want. I get that. Another one, they say it's a feeling of loss of control. And I think if my reaction in the dream was holding my hand up and like, oh my God, my teeth are falling out. Again, for the people that are on Spotify, I'm miming all of this
We're like
because it's
holding our
just so,
mouths and pointing to
oh my
and
goodness,
making sure they're all still there.
what an idiot. But anyway, if I was doing that and I was really concerned, or can I push them back in? What can I do? That
Yeah.
I can understand would be a feeling of loss of control. But if I'm really just spitting them out and go, oh, they'll come back, it doesn't feel like I have anything. But touching on your thing about truth, your own personal truth,
Yes.
this is where the second one that I have as a recurring part of my dreams, and again, like I said, it doesn't matter if it's a good dream, bad dream, or an indifferent dream. This is horrible and really, really hard to describe, but it started off that I would get a little bit of phlegm at the back of my throat that would prevent me from being able to speak. So
Yeah.
when I was talking, I would have issues. And that proceeded to being more like of a malignancy that was in my mouth that I felt as I'm talking to you and I'm trying to express myself in the dream. I can't, and I literally have to rip this stuff off the inside of my mouth, and it's physically attached, and there's a huge amount of pain involved in getting this out of my mouth. And then all I do is I rip it out and I just throw it away. I throw it away,
Yeah.
proceed to say what I've got to say, and it builds back up. Now, we all know I have a lot of issues with communication that I feel I often get, you know, taken wrongly with what I say. So I think that's pretty much a simple bit of analysis there that I'm like, "Oh, goodness, I just want to try to express what I've got to say, and I'm finding there's obstacles in my way." That would
Yes.
be how
Yes.
I would interpret that.
And also with the whole gag mechanism of that too, trying to rip things away so that you can speak, it's almost like you need to filter yourself for people when you're speaking. Because you just said, sometimes I feel like I'm being taken the wrong way, or and you've said in the past, I'm coming on too strong, or I'm too overbearing, or I'm not saying enough. And it's like you
Okay, Tay, we
always
do not have to go through all of the things wrong with me right now.
Sorry. There's nothing wrong with you, my love. There's nothing wrong with you. Just there's a lot of shit like barriers and filters in
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you have to get through in order to actually get your word voice out.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah,
and I think it's 100% it's as easy as that. And this is where I think sometimes it's as easy as that, it doesn't need
yes,
to be more
yeah.
complicated.
It doesn't
Uh,
need to be picked apart and dissected. I
no,
feel like
and
a lot of
it doesn't
people,
have to be.
yeah,
Like there are certain things that I think that we can go with when interpreting dreams that often, for instance, in a lot of things, water can symbolize emotion.
yes,
So if you see, water in your dreams, it can mean this and it can mean that. So we can go through a little bit of those symbols. But again, the problem you have with that, with just saying, "Oh, you were surrounded by," like for instance, I'm out in, I'm in an ocean.
yeah.
Well, if I'm a surfer, that's my happy place. That doesn't mean that I'm emotional turmoil.
Yeah,
It just must be. It
exactly.
might just be my brain's giving me a moment to just like go, ah.
Yeah,
And I dream of
yeah,
where I love more than anything else. But if I'm shit scared of deep water, or I'm shit
yeah,
scared of having things underneath me in the unknown, and
yeah.
I felt
What's in
anxious.
the water? I know if that was me in the dream, I'd be like, where are the fucking sharks? Like it's one of
Yeah,
my worst friggin' nightmares to be eaten alive by like a shark or a croc or something like that. So if that
yeah,
was me, that would be my main concern.
yeah. And I think that's where it's really good to say, okay, you need to take these things on board, read up a little bit about it, of what these, fire. It can be passion, it can be creativity, it
Yeah.
can be change, it can
But
be
if you've been stuck in a house fire or something like that, that's a
exactly.
nightmare.
Exactly. And I think this is where, and in my rule book, and when I talk about it, and anyone asks me for help in interpreting a dream, and funnily enough, even though I'm a harsh bitch, people do come and ask me.
You shark.
Oh my goodness. First thing first, ask yourself, how did you feel?
Yes.
Right? How did you feel during the dream? So, yeah, remember the symbolism, remember what you saw and but how did you feel is always got to be the first and foremost. And
Yeah.
I think science agrees with us here, because if we've proven with MRI and EEGs that it is an emotional thing that's going on here, focusing on the emotion would be key, I think, to unlocking all of
And when
this.
you're looking into that symbolism as well, like it's dreams are a personal thing.
Absolutely. And I just think so. We've got, look at that first. So look at your emotion. What did you feel? And like I said, the perfect example would be in your water. It could mean different things, but there's one that's we talk about a lot, is the dream of falling. It's a hugely
Yes.
common
Yes.
dream.
Yes.
Everyone dreams of falling. Now, if I'm saying to you straight away and I go, oh, I had a dream of falling last night, Tay, and you don't bother asking me any more questions and you go, oh, well, that picture, that can mean you're feeling out of control. Well, no, hang on a minute. Let me explain that when I felt like I was just about to spread my wings and fly.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
felt like I was just dropping beautifully through the air, just like you do when you're about to jump into a swimming pool. And it's the most beautiful feeling.
I actually did look up in my little dream dictionaries falling, and it says falling out of favor with someone, or humiliation, defeat, a natural fear of falling, falling out of control, or it can relate to like astral travel and things like that. But then that borderlines on flying. So I find it interesting that falling, it's always a negative thing in
Yes.
an
And
interpretive,
boom, I'm
way.
disputing that as bullshit right there.
Yeah.
On that, I'm calling bullshit so hard because I fall in my dreams all of the time,
Yeah.
and very rarely is there any terror involved. And I looked and I researched this too because I'm like thinking I find it very, very hard to believe that if I'm feeling exhilarated by what's occurring, you can tell me that's a negative thing.
Yeah.
And if you look deep, 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 um, it can also be reaffirming life choices. If you feel wonderful that you've just taken that leap of
I
faith,
literally am sitting here thinking leap of
leap of,
faith, like you've just said, you leaped off a height and then your wings spread. So
yeah,
leap of faith. If I was dreaming that and I was maybe went to bed with a significant concern in my mind or tossing up a decision, and then that was the dream that I had, that would be telling me, take the leap of faith.
yep,
Yeah, trust yourself,
100%.
you know.
And this is where, yeah, if you will serve yourself best if you look to the emotion first,
Yeah.
then try to unravel the symbolism. And
I had a dream the other night about, and this is something that's become recurring of late, which I find interesting because normally my dreams are like borderline nightmares or night terrors, or there's
no,
yeah, you wait until I tell the other one I had. But this one was a lot more simplistic in its nature, but I've had it a couple of times, and it's simply a pride of lions is chasing me, and I'm trying to outrun these lions. But whenever they get to me, I'm so filled with fear, but they're not doing anything to me. They're just sort of looking at me. And a lot of people would be like, oh, well, lions, that's strength, that's pride, that's all that type of flowery language. But I recently read a book about Circe, and she had lions all over her islands, right? She's a Greek goddess, and she gets banished to the island of Aiaia by her father Helios for turning a nymph into a sea monster, and all that shit. And
she didn't obey him.
no,
She didn't obey him.
no. So she got banished to an island. That seems to be the ancient Greek thing to do with their, rebel daughters. But on the island, she actually like really flourished and thrived and found her magic and her power. And she couldn't leave the island, but she didn't need to. She had everything at her disposal, but she had lions as her familiar. And I find it fascinating that after reading that book, and I mean, I had the dreams beforehand before reading the book, but I've had it again. And for me, I feel like the lions are more of a symbol of power. They're
Yep.
a symbol of strength. They're a symbol of one's ability to know what to do in the moment, and to go after what you want, and to, be successful in the hunt. And me running away from them, I'm running away from my own power.
Yeah.
I'm running away from it out of fear that it's going to hurt me, or that I'm going to be hurt by it.
Or that it's too much.
It's too much.
It's too much for everybody else.
Yes, yes. And the lions are there
That's how I
like,
read it.
we're not we're not going to hurt you. It's not
Yeah,
gonna hurt
exactly.
you.
When they get to you,
Yeah,
but you still felt the fear.
I still
So
felt the fear.
you haven't
But
got there yet.
yeah, so I'm blocking myself from being accepted into that pride, into, into
Yeah.
power basin. And so that I found really fascinating because it took me
Yeah.
to learn about Cersei and her
Yeah.
alliance to understand why I was
Understand what was
having that
going on.
dream.
That's really interesting. And if you look at it from the perspective of the threat scenarios,
Yeah,
and it's not a real life threat scenario, but it's a metaphorical threat scenario
yeah,
that you're running through. So it might be your brain just keeps running you through it until you, almost like a Groundhog Day event,
yeah,
until it
yeah.
clicks.
Until I
Until it clicks,
get
where
that lesson.
you're gonna get
Yeah,
so um worn down with being fearful of something that ends up having nothing to harm you,
yeah,
that
yeah.
you'll basically start going, oh, okay. And hopefully what it's doing is exercising the fear. See, that's how I would go with that if I was interpreting that.
Well,
It was
I
a,
looked up the being chased part because that's something that happens to a lot of people as well. Whether
yes,
that's by lions, monsters, zombies, other people,
yep,
Um, and it's pretty much escaping your fears or like trying to escape something that you're denying, or for something that you've forgotten is catching up to you. And so,
yep,
you're trying to distance yourself from it. And for me, the being chased is probably more about escaping my fear
yep,
or denying myself that
yeah.
which, the lions are trying to give me.
Because the one thing I had read just about chasing, and it's probably a little bit different from in your dream, but chasing could, again, like we said, it can be a part of yourself that you're actually running from.
Yeah.
So it can symbolize what you even perceive to be a threat in your own personality. But in the scenarios where people are chased by, a dark figure or something that is unknown, it can also be a fear that people are coveting what you have,
Yes.
that it actually can be a
Yeah.
representation of your fear of losing what you have because someone else wants it
Yeah.
and is
Yeah.
about to take it from you. So some interesting things. I just wanted to go here. So we're saying look at your emotions. We get that. That's perfect. Try to understand some of the symbolism, which perfect example. You need to delve a little bit deeper. And that's sort of like, don't want to say that makes Jung right, but it sort of kind of feeds into the Jung thing that there's this universal mythology
Yeah, there's
that we
always
can.
going to be common symbolism between cultures, between societies, and even in modern day society when, various authors have decided on what these symbols and animals and plants and things mean in dreams. Like that's a decided common symbology, mythology within
Yeah,
our own modern, dreaming landscapes. And so I would say, same thing as you, Petra, look at the symbolism, take what resonates from that symbolism, but look at how you're feeling in the dream, taking the experience for what it is. How do you feel, that being or that
yeah,
animal or that plant is showing up for you? Because you might read like a symbolism in a dream dictionary and go, well, that really doesn't align at all. But then you go back to, okay, well, what does this mean in my family, or what does this mean to me personally?
yeah,
When has this come up in my life? Because we've got that Freud Young combination of
100%.
it's what's happening in our waking and it's what's happening in our subconscious to come together and to help us
Yeah,
integrate and
yeah,
grow. Yeah.
yeah. And this comes down to the last thing that I've got in my list of the things you should do is you should consider your situation. Okay. And
Yes.
this is why I think this is really, really important because some of us have no control of our dreams because we don't do it often enough for it to be a thing. Personally, I'm the kind of person that if I've got a problem that I can't solve, or if I want to find the best way to resolve something, I'm trying to uncertain how to navigate a certain path, I put that in the front of my mind before I go to bed, and hopefully I'll get a dream that means something. Now, they actually did a scientific study on this, and this has blown my mind in relation to situations in dreams and how our subconscious mind will talk to us in a certain way. So what they did was they took people into a sleep study, and they are people that were known to be regular dreamers, and they gave them a riddle, a puzzle that they were to look at before going to bed, that they weren't allowed to discuss in any way, and they wanted to see what the findings were in the dreams.
Yeah.
Now, they were presented with a card that had the letters HIJKLMNO just printed on the card. That was handed to them. Have a look at that. Now go off to bed, dream. Let's see what happens. So the next morning, they all reported on their dreams, and a very high percentage. Now, unfortunately, I cannot find this study. I read about this probably when I was in my 20s. And if anyone finds the study online, please forward me the link. But a very, very high percentage of the people in this study group dreamt about water, whether they were dreaming about rain or streams or the ocean or anything. They dreamt about water. Now, HIJKLMNO were the letters H through to O. H2O equals water.
What?
So that's the riddle. And even people that didn't have any, we all know what H2O is. We've all learnt that in school. It was amazing how people who could not undo the puzzle consciously,
That
their
is so
subconscious mind,
fascinating.
their subconscious mind went, oh, come on, idiot. It's it's
It's
water,
water.
dudes.
It's H2O.
It's water,
That's
dudes.
incredible.
And that the neuroscientists who studied that, and people who have constantly gone on with that, they're at the belief now that at minimum 95% of our thoughts, our thought process, happens in our subconscious mind. 95%. There's
Yeah.
some neuroscientists that are saying it could be as high as 98%, which means our conscious mind, which we think is the thinker of the group, which we think is the one, oh, that's where our logic occurs, and our subconscious is this deep, dark, murky pool of not knowing what's going on, is actually the one that's telling you virtually everything,
Yeah.
answering
The
virtually.
subconscious mind is the one at the wheel. The conscious mind is the passenger with the map, like
Exactly.
yeah, that's how I read that. And that isn't that fascinating because that
Oh,
experiment feeds very much into the art of dream seeding for a lot of spiritual people. So you go to bed with an intention or a question in mind to ponder or to receive insight on. And then you go to sleep and then you get the answers within your dreams. So it's kind of like a subconscious subliminal messaging to access that little
I
back
that
processes that are happening in the brain computer.
that changed my way of viewing
Yeah.
things way back when in my 20s, and it further changed my way of thinking because I had read in the same study that if we can increase the link between subconscious and conscious thought, that if we can actively have it talking even quicker, even though it seems like it's a one-sided conversation now that we know a little bit more about it. But if we can do anything to facilitate that happening quickly and in a waking state. And one of the things they said was we all have unconscious tics. We all have little things that we just do as a repetitive thing we do that
Yeah.
is not our conscious mind doing that, to our subconscious mind doing that. And the study said that by noticing it and endeavoring to control it is a way that our conscious and our subconscious talk, and it increases the conversation between the two. Now, I don't know if that's true or not true, but I took it on board because I thought, this is, if our subconscious mind is doing all the heavy lifting,
Yeah.
surely we almost want to put that in the driver's seat. But all right,
Apparently not.
apparently not.
Subconscious
Apparently,
mind is like the fellow that deals with all the dirty work behind the
yeah, it's
scenes.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so funny. Now, the other thing I just wanted to talk about, dreams can be broken down into a number of categories.
I was gonna say we haven't discussed like the types of dreams
Okay,
that we can have.
let's do it. So the first one that comes up, and these are in no particular order, but recurring dreams. Right now, I'll
Oh,
look into.
yeah.
Now, I've actually experienced recurring dreams since I was 4. And although the dream has become effectively more sophisticated, the dream is effectively the same. I'm given a choice.
Yeah.
When I was little, it was a choice between the red button and the blue button.
The
So
Matrix.
it's the Matrix. It wasn't original. It was from
That's
me,
actually
man.
Keanu Reeves.
I know, right? And I had to press one. I had to choose one. There was no lack of choice is allowed. So and people are screaming at me in my own head right now saying there's always a chance. You can choose not to choose. In this particular recurring dream I had, if I chose not to choose, I would be inundated with an excruciating amount of pain through sound. So it was
Wow.
just a sound that would just literally drop you to your feet. And so you had no choice. And when I was little, if I went to one side, I would either get stomped on by a robot, a huge, big Gigantor robot, because that was my favorite cartoon.
Yeah.
And so Gigantor would stomp me. Or if I went the other one, I'd get eaten by a dinosaur, because dinosaurs I also loved. So
That is
now,
such a weird dream.
weird dream.
Like you either get stomped on by your favorite robot or eaten by your favorite dinosaur. What the hell?
Yep,
What the fuck?
that was my 4-year-old nightmare. Now, of course, the choices available to me now are much more sophisticated. I don't get stomped on by a robot, but either way, it's a bad choice. Like, it's not good for me, and still, I don't have an option not to choose one of those two things.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, science has told me that if I have recurring nightmares and they happen on numerous occasions, it's because I've got a recurring behavioral pattern or an ongoing unresolved
Right.
issue. Ongoing unresolved issue.
Okay.
Now, all I can say is I I can't fathom what it is that my 4-year-old mind
I was
and
gonna
my
say,
54-year-old mind have
yeah,
in common.
yeah.
Like, what is it that they and how is it I could have gone through half a century and not been able to work out
And still not know
not worked out any of
what's
my
going
shit?
on there.
None of my shit's been resolved. Like,
I
literally,
wonder what your
Freud would be
full
going, Ziggy, Ziggy would be going, "What the fuck,
what the
Petra?"
fuck, Petra? I wonder if it was like so simple as I can't make a choice between dinosaurs or robots, and that you felt like you were betraying one or the other by choosing, because they're both bad options. Like, one of them gets ousted and the other one kills you. Like, and I mean, as a 4-year-old, I would imagine that's a pretty serious decision, because I sit there and look at Erica sometimes, my 5-year-old, but she was 4, not too long ago.
Yeah.
And I look at what is so important to her that, she has a full meltdown about it or whatever. And I think about what she must dream about all the time. And I would imagine having to choose between your favorite cartoon characters would be a pretty big deal for a 4-year-old.
I
And
gotta tell you,
as
I
she's
loved
gotten
I
older,
love Gigantor so much. I've got literally robots all around because as soon as I thought it was appropriate to start buying
yeah,
them for my children,
yeah.
I bought the most expensive ones I
Yeah, you're
could.
like, I'm living out my
They're
childhood
for
dream right
me.
now.
My
4-year-old me
kids
is
don't.
going to be so proud.
I'm trying to think where he is, but I've hidden him so you can't see him in the video. But I've got anyway.
But
Um,
isn't it funny how, as you got older, that evolved into
it
different
evolved, and it's still. And look, if we wanted to interpret it, I would think, and I find it strange the 4-year-old would know this, but sometimes life doesn't give you good choices.
Yes.
Like, sometimes either choice is bad, and you're going to get hurt there in amongst it. And I think
Sometimes you can't have everything you want when you
no,
want it, and you have to
and I
make a
think
choice.
I was pretty aware of that, and I'm a pretty resilient person, and I think it might talk about a way of me becoming resilient. Like, the dream was helping me become resilient because it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Get over
Yeah,
it.
it was
And
helping
if you
you
and,
process
and if you
that.
want to be a baby about it, well, boom, here's some like really shitty ass sound
Here's
to
some
drop you to
hard
your knee.
truth.
Get
Hard.
over yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so but I have read though, in all seriousness, I have read that a recurring dream that is persistent for that period of time and it has can be indicative of something more going on in a spiritual plane. Okay,
Yeah.
so we can look at it purely psychologically, and it's like, yeah, I've got issues, but it could also be that there's a moral thing in terms of spirituality and my spiritual movement of something that I was aware of, and I'm was aware of it from a very early age because some people just are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I would
there
agree
is
with
that.
that because I've had similar experiences growing up.
Yeah, and
Like,
I think it's people that are going to be more spiritual in their daily life that probably are more aware that they've got something to achieve this life,
yeah. Yeah.
would be more inclined to have. And anyone I've come across that's told me about them, it always seems to be a critical thing where you can go, oh, that's so you, like
Yeah.
that is so you, that's so your personality that you feel that. So like I think that's a very strong part of my personality where I'm fully aware of the fact that there's often going to be bad choices, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't you just can't have a. Anyway, let me not get into my moral
I
stuff.
want to talk about lucid dreaming because that's
Lucid
something that
dreaming.
I do constantly.
So
And
what is lucid dreaming?
lucid dreaming is where you feel like you're awake in the dream. Some people feel like you're in control. Others feel like they're awake, but they can't control what's happening. But the general thing is that it's kind of like dream walking a little bit if you're talking about spiritual stuff. But lucid dreaming, a lot of the time when I'm lucid dreaming, I'll either wake up within the dream and then in some way, shape, or form, and then realize I'm dreaming and that I actually have a bit of control over the narrative of what's happening. And then other times it's like mid dream, I've all of a sudden got my hands on the wheel and
Yeah,
I'm affecting the outcome overall.
yeah,
So what
yeah. You're not
what
just
is
a
happening
passenger.
when lucid dreaming? Because
Yeah.
yeah, it's something I do a bit.
Now there's a bit of science behind this. They've actually studied people who are lucid dreaming, and there is a higher level of frontal and frontolateral activity during lucid dreaming, which is associated normally with conscious awareness. So
Right.
all of those people say, I'm a lucid dreamer, and they think they're full of shit. Well, sorry, science doesn't think that. Science actually has got differences in the brain activity that says, no, I think I know who's full of shit. That's not me. Um, it is also, I'm just saying, I'm just calling everybody out
The
today.
Petra the Savage Shark is out today.
I'm
He's
here for
in
it
the
today.
water.
Absolutely. And also the frontal lobe activity that is normally reduced during REM sleep is not as suppressed when you're lucid dreaming. So
Right.
science can tell. So if you were running an EEG on your brain and you were having a lucid dream, the activity in your brain is actually different.
That's
So
fascinating.
I think I think that's so interesting. Absolutely. And even more interesting when you think of it from the concept of it's associated with conscious awareness, and we've already established that the conscious mind only does 2 or maybe 2 to 5% of what's going on. But geez, it must be able to pack some punch with that 5%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it must be able to. Okay. Um, a really good point about lucid dreaming that it can talk dream walking and other things. We're going to do that in another podcast, and we're going to
Absolutely.
talk a lot more about that. Okay, so then we've got nightmares and night terrors.
Which we've already touched a little bit on in our, sleep paralysis thing with
Yes,
nightmare and everything.
yes. Now, night terrors are completely different to a nightmare. A nightmare is very intense. It has a very emotional response, whether it's anger, fear, or disgust. And I didn't realize it. I thought I was the only person that gets disgusted by a dream. I actually have dreams where I try to gross myself out so badly. It's insane. So I'm really, really happy to read that it's not just me, because I
That's
always just associated nightmares with fear.
yeah,
I thought a nightmare was something that you were frightened of. I didn't know it was also that you're disgusted by.
that's
And
interesting.
isn't it? And I'll tell you of a disgusting one in a minute. But night terrors, they occur when you're partially awake and you're in the slow wave sleep, and they result in a period of disorientation on waking. So
Yeah,
very,
right.
very similar to the sleep paralysis and the sleepwalking. They're part of actually a sleep disorder. And
Okay.
if you experience a night terror, you may appear to have woken up to the people that you're interacting with, but that person is not awake and they're still experiencing the terror.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and that's the thing you have to critically, you cannot go to a person who's suffering a night terror and give them a shake and go,
Yes.
snap
Yes.
out of it.
So funny you say that because like a while ago, Erica started having like night. I had a night terrors here and there, and your first think is, oh, wake them up, so that they snap out of it. But I actually looked it up, and it was actually bad to do that because
Yes,
you're trapping them in that moment upon waking, and they can't resolve it. So you just need to sort of be there and be reassuring. And I mean, I still talk to her and everything because
yep,
I feel, that they can hear you. But yeah, so I thought that was fascinating.
that really interests me. Um, the last two that I've got here to mention is daydreams. And people often don't think about
Yes, because
daydreaming when
people
we're
don't
talking
think
about
about
dreams.
daydreams.
Nah, now I am off with the fairies all of the time. I will just be
Same,
sitting there and I'll just like
same.
glaze over and I'm thinking about something else. It is not just you being bored by your surroundings. It's not as simple as that. And when they've studied that, your brain does slow down to the same kind of patterns that you experience when sleeping. So
Yeah,
your brain is doing it while it's awake, but it is actually slowing things down and going into that processing pattern that it does when it dreams. So it's not just boredom and you're not going blank. Your brain is doing something at that
yeah.
time.
So it's kind of like taking a moment to calibrate what's
Yeah. So
actually
leave me
going on
be,
in and
people.
around you.
When I be daydreaming, I'm just slowing it all down and
Don't wake
processing.
me. I'm processing. I
I'm
I
processing.
need to compute. Computer
Now,
says
you
no.
mentioned before in your lucid dream that you will awake within the dream.
Yeah.
Now, there's also something called false awakening dreams. And these are dreams when you believe you have awoken and you proceed through normal daily routine.
And then you
And then
realize you're
at this,
still asleep.
and then you find
Fucking hate
some
that.
people just now to me, these are way more frightening. I get these as
Yes.
well. Like I've literally ticked every box. I get these false awakening dreams, and for me, it becomes a ridiculous loop
Yeah.
that I will have it and I will wake and then I'll find I'm not awoke and I'm still within it. And it'll usually be something like I think I'm having a stroke. For instance, I think I'm in
Yeah.
bed
Yeah.
somewhere and I think I'm having a stroke and I can hear, and I know I'm awake because I can hear everyone in the around me talking and I can't get to them and blah, 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 blah. And I build this whole construct around it that makes perfect sense. And then I wake and I go, oh, God, that was just a dream. Just that was horrendous.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I think, oh, goodness, but am I all right? Do I feel okay? Whatever it is. And then I'll wake again, and then I'll wake again, and I'll go through this constant loop that could happen literally 20, 30 times.
You know what that
And it,
just reminded me of that we haven't spoken about is fever dreams.
oh, no, yes, we haven't.
We're
Um,
gonna have to we're gonna have to delve into that at some point. 'Cause
another time.
that I've
But
had some weird ass dreams while having
while,
fevers.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, one thing I will say about the false awakening dream, apart from the fact that they're just freaky, there is a school of thought and a belief in the spiritual community that if you, and I think also, if I have to put myself out on a limb, they mention this on Constantine, the movie, that if
Yeah.
you awake in a second time within a dream and continue dreaming, that second dream is more likely to be prophetic.
Yeah,
So
right.
really pay attention to that. I'm just going to ignore that because that means I'm literally going to suffer 7,592 strokes in my life. So I'm
Well,
going to
I always
ignore.
say that the dreams you remember are important. Like you've had them for a reason, and that you've held on to them because there's obviously something more that you need to unpack there. So for that second dream to be on the prophetic side, I wouldn't discount it. Like,
No. So
yeah,
it's just really, so we got some, and that's about all I've got.
yeah.
That's about. I will just say the disgust dream that I had, just so
Yes,
people understand what I'm
please.
talking about. I had one dream at one point in time. I've got this is a recurring dream of mine. I'm a bit of a germaphobe. I don't like public toilets. And to say I don't like public toilets, I
This
don't like
is
public
making
toilets.
sense already. Yep, carry
I
on.
don't like it to a point that's beyond. And anytime I have a dream, I will find myself dead set in the middle of a public toilet with bare feet, and the floor is covered in, and it's usually just water,
Water, yep.
but I'm not 100%. There's always bits of toilet paper around me, and I've got to negotiate my way through this.
Oh, it's
I
giving
have
me
it
the heebies just you telling me about
all
it.
of the time. I find myself in this bloody situation. I had one the other day, and not only I then fell into a river of sewage. And while I was in the river of sewage, and I was literally taking in mouthfuls of
Uh,
everything, I'm actually, as I'm going through it, there was body parts in there as well. Right? So I'm
so
sorry,
you
everybody. I
were
know
eating shit and toes.
this is telling people way too much. But even in the dream, I said to myself in the dream, "Oh, this is a bit rich. Like you're going,
What the
you're
fuck?
going,
What the fuck is going on?
you're going a little bit too far," I said to myself, which actually tamed it all down because I was like, I'm just going to swim through this because I'm just dreaming anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not in a pile of poo and body remains. It's all fine. But
What are you dreaming about, Petra?
no sense.
I
Now,
feel like that's in Dante's Inferno met diarrhea.
oh, now look, I'm going to close what I've got to say in all of this. Was I also read something somewhere, and I can't remember, that they say that without dreaming, and I think this has been proved because there's certain medications that put a pause on your dreaming, that it's really not healthy for mental health. It's really not great. Now, I'm not going to talk about whether, how stable people are and not stable, because I often joke to myself, I'm of either the most sane person because the amount that I dream,
Yeah.
or I'm the person who's on the edge to falling off into the
Yeah,
abyss
yeah,
because
yeah.
I require so many dreams to keep myself sane. I'm going to leave it with that.
I think that firstly, I feel like that would really indicate some great mental health if you're consistently rolling through different things. Maybe if you were just like always stuck on the same stuff, that might not be so healthy. But I mean, we're not mental health professionals, obviously, so we can't really say, or psychologists and things. But I think definitely, I think we use dreams to mull through what's happening, and we use dreams to further ourselves as, physical beings, as intuitive beings. To there's insights can, be prophetic. I quite often have dreams that are prophetic. And things like daydreaming and deja vu, that's something that happens to me a lot, and I sit here and go, wow, I've done this before, and it sort of gives me a little second chance in that moment to redo that moment a little bit and go, oh, well, this is the way I would have preferred to approach it the first time, if I feel like I know what's going to happen because I've had that dreaming insight. So yeah, dreams are profound.
Yeah, and I think a lot of courage can be found in your dreams too, because like we said before, it gives you the opportunity to run down. Like we both mentioned that we have, apocalyptic dreams, zombie dreams, and I've mentioned it before to people, and people go, "Oh, that must be horrific." Some of them horrific. Like some of them are horrific, but usually it's just so cathartic. Like if I go into a good zombie dream, I'm like, I'm ready to kick some zombie ass. I don't have any guilt. I can go absolutely crazy in these dreams, and I don't feel bad.
And
I'm
it's
killing
not
a zombie.
the dreams where you're confronted with imminent danger and thing that I'm most fearful of. It's the dreams where you're exploring your taboos.
Yep.
So I mentioned earlier, like sex dreams, right?
Oh,
let's talk about it because it happens to everyone.
Did I say I had to be somewhere at some point in time?
Analyze it a bit, Petra.
Okay, I'm there for you, Tay. I'm here. I'm supporting this.
So it's something that happens to me quite a lot. I won't go into too much detail, but usually people experience them with strangers or exes or people of the same sex, opposite sex, whatever. But a lot of the time, it's about what those interactions mean for yourself or your current relationships. Like if you're dreaming about, getting with exes or platonic friends or something like that, it's actually bringing up what's happening in your relationships currently and what you prized in those former relationships or interactions that you want to bring to the forefront. But a lot of people just go, oh no, it's taboo. Like I shouldn't be dreaming about that. I shouldn't be doing that. But again, it's your body and your subconscious mind's way of saying, this is what I crave in this moment. This is what I want in my relationships with my partners, within myself. This is how I want to feel within myself. And so I'm not shaming anybody who does, because it's perfectly natural. And that's just what I wanted to say.
Yeah, and I think people
that.
do have sexy time dreams about people that it almost makes them feel a little bit uncomfortable that they've had the dream with that person. And I must admit, I've had that happen. And usually for me, it's that my relationship with that person has gotten to a point and I wish it would go, it would become more intimate.
Yes.
It doesn't mean I mean intimacy in a sexual nature.
Yes, exactly.
Literally not attracted to that person at all. But it's more that it's just, I feel like we've stonewalled. We haven't been able to.
Exactly.
The ice hasn't melted in certain areas, and I feel like we could be so much more.
And in saying that can happen with in dreams where like you're having fights or fallings out with like family or friends and things. Like, oh God, I have that all the time. I'm all of a sudden arguing with someone, or they've ousted me or something like that. In a weird village type apocalyptic scenario. And so that's really inviting me to sort of reflect on those relationships and see what it is that I'm wanting out of those and where I can improve on those, or what I'm expecting from other people even in those dreams. So that's the only reason I really bring it up, because one, it's common, and two, there's more to it than just you're having a bit of cookie with old bud from that TV ad,
I suppose that's really a very important point to make, because don't discount it just because it's got a sexy time nature to it, because it's still your mind trying to say something to you, and that might not necessarily be, I want to get into that person's pants.
Exactly.
It might be something completely different. It might be that. It might not be.
Exactly. Well, I mean, no shame if it is.
No shame. Look, I gotta say, if I can seed a dream, if I can seed it, I'm watching David Beckham documentary on TV right now. I'm just saying.
Tonight.
And I reckon anyone who's watched it, male or female, is trying to see the same dream.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'd probably say the same thing about like Jason Momoa or someone like that, but Gal Gadot. Look, I'm not.
No judgment here.
No judgment.
No judgment.
Moral of the story: it's your personal dream space, and however you feel, whatever's coming up for you, really feel into that for what it's saying to you, and take dream dictionaries with a grain of salt. Take what resonates, leave the rest, as we would say.
Absolutely. So what are we doing next week?
Next week, we are doing The Truth About Spooky Season, a Halloween special.
Halloween
is going to be interesting because there's so much to this tradition besides the commercialized candy route.
There is, absolutely. Can't wait.
It's going to be great. So, as always, remember, curiosity may have killed a few cats, but there is no growth in ignorant bliss.
Were they black cats, Taylor?
Some black cats, all right? And I'm sure many of them have died for the cause.
Absolutely.
All right. Until
see ya.
Bye.
Bye.